Hello everyone, my name is Kumeera, daughter of Neelamegam, number matrix BB2111057.
Hello, my name is Kristina, binti Deding. My matrix number is BT12403.
My name is Levis. My matrix number is BB2111073.
Hi, my name is Laures Johilin and my matrix number is BB21110364.
My name is Neelamegam and my matrix number is BB21110629.
In this video, I'm going to talk about the introduction. Marginalist school formerly existed in 1871 when William Stanley Jevon and Carl Menger published their books on marginal utility theory. William S. Jevons, Carl Menger, Leon Walras, and Nat Wissel developed the marginalist school of economic thinking in the 1870s. By the return of the century, the marginalists had delved further into the process of rational decision making on both the demand and supply sides of the market. In this study, we will discuss about 5 major questions about marginalist school and major figures of this school.
I'm going to talk about the historical background of the marginalist school. For your information, there was a lot of serious obstacles and social issues remain unsolved without a proper solution even a century after the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. So many of you would ask, what is Industrial Revolution? Well, the Industrial Revolution was a global phenomenon. It arose from changes in global economic relations, and poverty was extremely widespread despite the fact that productivity was rising. Actually, industrial revolutions have resulted in better economic development, better productivity, and improved welfare in the countries that have received the majority of the benefits. Those benefits are including high quality goods and also services. However, income distribution among the developed countries that pioneered the Industrial Revolution was inequitable, especially at the global level, where inequality along with climate change and other sustainability concerns has become a major challenge. Plus, many people were adversely affected by business changes. Individuals could no longer rely on their own initiative and capacity to overcome challenges. Farmers and agricultural laborers faced challenges, and many were drawn to cities by the carrot of greater possibilities and the club of rural poverty. Apart from that, before adequate workers' compensation laws were created, industrial accidents regularly caused significant burdens to employees and their families. Long hours of labor, dangerous and unhealthy work environment, employees disproportionately large economic power in bargaining with workers, the rise of monopolistic enterprises, and feeling of inadequacy in old age were just few of the issues that prompted people to look for solutions outside of classical economic thinking. The 19th century European trend was to establish 3 ways to address serious social issues. All the 3 solutions opposed traditional economic principles. These strategies including first, promoting socialism, and the second, bolstering labor unions, and the third is calling for government intervention to improve circumstances by regulating the economy, removing abuses, and redistributing money. All these 3 solutions are condemned by marginalists. They taught with an apparently Olympian impartiality, concluding that while classical economic value and distribution theories were incorrect, their policy views were valid. The marginalists supported market allocation and distribution, condemned government involvement, opposed socialism, and attempted to dissuade labor unions as they are useless. Classical values and distribution theories, according to the major early marginalists, failed in assuming that land rent is an unearned income and that exchange value is dependent on the labor time required in the production process. The first notion was taken and built upon by Henry George, who is an American economist, and the second one by Karl Marx. If classical economists could be persuaded to state what its inventors never intended, that rent is immoral and work provides all values, then the science of economics was long overdue for an overhaul.
Now I'm going to talk about the major tenets of the marginalist school. Basically, we have 10 major tenets, which is number one, focus on the margin. This school focus its attention on the point of change where decisions are made. In other words, on the margin. The marginalists extend to all economic theory the marginal principle that Ricardo developed in his theory of rent. Number two, we have rational economic behavior. The marginalists assume that people are rationally in balancing pleasure and pains in measuring marginal utilities of different goods and in balancing present against future needs. They assume that purposeful behavior is normal and typical of random abnormalities that will cancel each other out. The approach employed by the marginalists had its roots in the work of Germany Bentham, and that they assume the dominant drive of human action is to seek utility and avoid disutility. Number three is microeconomic emphasis. Individual and business are central of the surrounding drama, rather than looking at the economy as a whole or macroeconomic. Marginalists look at individual decision, market condition for one type of product and the output of particular firm. Number four, the use of abstract deductive method. The marginalists reject the historical method in favor of analytic and abstract approach pioneered by Ricardo and the other classicists. Number five, we have the pure of competition emphasize. Marginalists generally base their evolution on the belief of natural competition in the arena of small individualistic and biased entrepreneurs. Several buyers, many sellers, homogeneous product, uniform price, no age, no character or agency has enough financial electric of materially have an effect on market price. Number six, we have demand-oriented price theory. For early marginalists, demand became a major factor in pricing. Early marginalists went to extreme and emphasized demand, effectively eliminating supply. Alfred Marshall synthesized supply and demands into what we might call neoclassical economics. This type of economic is primarily organism, which rationally acknowledging the surviving contribution of the classical school. Number seven, we have emphasized on subject utility. According to the marginalist, demand is controlled by terms of marginally utility. It is subjective psychological phenomenon. Cost production include the sacrifice and hardship of the work. Managing a firm and saving the money develop a capital fund. And number 8, we have equilibrium approach. Marginalists felt that economic force generally tend towards equilibrium. There is a balance of opposing force. Whenever perturbation causes dislocation, a new movement toward equilibrium occurs. Number 9, we have merger of land with capital goods. In the analysis, marginalists combine land and capital. We talk about resource and interest, rent and profit return to property resource. This had an analytic advantage. It also fought the conclusion of people that land rent was unreasonable. Income and unnecessary payment to secure land use. Marginalities generally associate reward to landowner with the theory of interest. And lastly, we have minimal government involvement. Marginalists continue the classical school advocating minimal state involvement in the economy. The most desirable policy, the most case there is no interference with the natural economy. The law was appropriate if the greatest social benefit we were realized. Next, we talk about whom did the marginalists benefit or seek to benefit. Number one is worker. The pay received by worker would be equal to their contribution to the value of the output. Number two is Marxian. Marginalists help counter the Marxian call of revolution by the proletariat, and also benefit those who are interest was simply in maintaining the status quo, that is those who are resist change. Number three is landowner. Marginalism defend landowner against attack based on Ricardian rent theory. Number four is wealthy people. This school benefit the wealthy people who generally oppose government intervention that might redistribute income.
Now I'm going to talk about how was the marginalist school valid, useful or correct in its time. The marginalist school developed new and powerful tools of analysis, especially geometric diagrams and mathematical techniques. The school emphasized the forces that shape individual decisions. This was valid in a world where such decisions were significant in determining the course of economic activities. The method of partial equilibrium analysis championed by many members of this school was useful for abstracting from the complexity of the real world. This approach, allowing one variable at a time to change while holding all other variables temporarily constant, enabled the investigators to dissect complex phenomena one step at a time. As the marginalists introduced successive variables, they eventually approach more realistic situations. There is a certain virtue in not neglecting the individual economic unit or the small sectors of the economy. The microeconomic approach of marginalism complements the macroeconomic approach, which may overlook many problems by viewing the economy as a whole. Clearly, the microeconomic approach of marginalism has an important place in economic theory. Next, I'm going to talk about which tenets of the marginalist school become lasting contributions. These economists and their forerunners developed such lasting contributions such as mathematical economics, the basic monopoly model, a theory of duopoly, the theory of diminishing marginal utility, the theory of rational consumer choice, the law of demand, the law of diminishing marginal returns as it applies to manufacturing enterprises, the concept of returns to scale, work-leisure choice analysis, the marginal productivity theory of factor returns, and so forth. In the past 2 decades, this choice theoretic approach introduced by the marginalists has experienced resurgence within economics.
Next, I would like to brief about one of the major figures from the marginalist school, which is Anton Augustin Conrad. Anton Augustin Conrad is one of the forerunners of marginalist school. He published Researches in 1838. He was a French mathematician. Conrad's initial work was ignored until he passed away and until it was continued by William Stanley Jevons, Alfred Marshall, and Fisher. Antoine Augustin Conrad was born on August 28, 1801 in Grey-Franche-Comté and passed away on March 31, 1877 in Paris. He exhibited a wide range of interests, a strong work ethic, and an even greater willingness for self-sacrifice. We can see his sacrifices when he remained unmarried in order to assist his father in bearing the hardship of a big family, and he secured an employment at a notary's office which he is not interested. When he was at the age of 20, he was enrolled at the École Normale, which is one of the schools located in France. But the school was closed in 1822 due to political concerns. He went on to the Faculty of Sciences, where he completed his primary thesis, mechanics, and also a minor thesis in astronomy in 1829. He became Professor of Mechanics and Analysis at the Faculty of Sciences in Lyon in 1834. Followed by, he became Directeur of the Académie de Grenoble in October 1835 and taught mathematics at the faculty. The next year, which is 1835, he took over as a General Inspector of Education from Henri-Marie Ampère. He was Rector of Académie de Dijon between 1854 to 1862, but he resigned in 1862 due to his eyesight problem.
Next, I'm going to talk about why the selected economist is interested to us. Antoine Augustin Conrad was a model of a first-rate scholar, always self-sufficient, self-assured, and self-effacing. No matter what the consequences he faces, he will always get the job done. For many years, he had neither independent income nor abundant leisure. However, despite all the struggles he faces in his life, he still contributes to our economies until today. Another reason why the writer chose Antoine Augustin Conrad is because his writing on economics have such a profound impact on the social science that attempting to separate what he would have recognized as the continuation of his work from what he would have rejected is impossible. One thing that makes Conrad stand out from the other economics is that his mathematical treatise is unique, is that his illustrations almost come in pair, one in natural or physical science and the other are from social science. Conrad's contribution to the development of mathematical modeling, industrial economics, and the game theory in economy is well known. Conrad has supplied tremendous inspiration to his followers all over the world, even though it took economics many decades after his death to discover his knowledge. First and foremost, next I'm gonna discuss on the significance of his theory to economic thought. Conrad's groundbreaking work on declaring the mathematician of economics without any metaphysical commitment to the underlying phenomena was so far ahead of his time in his literature that it was virtually undetected at the time. While he acknowledged the value of a quantity of money to an individual is determined by his wealth, he does not believe it is feasible to quantify utility and create a functional link between the utility of a sum of money and wealth. He compared the scientific definition of wealth as the total value of thing to the social economic interpretation of the word well-being. Conrad also developed all the concepts that are still in use in microeconomics today, such as duopoly, which is a market which two firms are competing against each other. By using a certain inverse demand equation, could not find a way for a duopoly firm in a competition to get revenues despite the increase in marginal costs. Could not present a novel answer to the question of how commodity prices are determined by applying the theory of arbitrary function. His starting point is monopoly. It is the simplest problem to solve, since the entrepreneur does not have to deal with competition reaction. He next applied his concept to the instance of a multi-firm rivalry. As a result, infinite competition appeared to be a limit where no firm choice may affect pricing. As a result, he developed all the concepts that are still in use in microeconomics today.
In conclusion, the history of the marginalist school goes back to 1871, focusing primarily on marginal utility as a measure of scarcity and formalizing a theory exchange characterized by proportionality between prices and marginal utilities. Marginalist principles pertaining to production were still tentative and incomplete at the time. The Marginal Utility was published by Stanley Gibbon and Carl Menger. In general, the school aims to improve humanity interests by encouraging a greater knowledge of how market systems efficiently allocate resources and promote economic liberty. Thank you.